Good day, everyone. Thanks for coming and sharing your time with us to the discussion between Michael Rasmussen and myself about building resilient future resilient through GRC and ESG. For that purpose, we got an honor to welcome Michael Rasmussen, who actually the GRC Pundit from United States, who based in Chicago. And today, we are going to talk a little bit about resilience. So in that case, I would like to invite Michael toward a certain questions regarding these particular terms, i.e., Michael, how are you, Michael? It's good to see you again. Yeah, Michael, can you share to the audience who potentially be attending our upcoming GRC Summit, which will be held in August 2023? So, Michael, what does resilient mean? And why you think it is important for organization? What's the difference between resilient and agility, and how do they interlink one to another? Please, Michael.
Great question, Antonio. So what does resilience mean, and why is it important to an organization, and what's that difference between resilience and agility? From my perspective, to use an analogy, if I'm running down the street or on some trail and I trip over an obstacle, resilience is how quickly you can get back up and start running again. Resilience is the recovery from a risk event. Agility is that aspect that if I'm, again, running down that street or the trail, that I can see what's coming at me and I can leap over or go around, leverage my environment so that I don't trip. Now, these are two very important concepts for risk management. Organizations need to have risk agility and risk resilience, and they need to come together. It's a very symbiotic relationship. Resilience is that ability to recover quickly, to spring back into shape. So if you have a risk event, that process or that service or whatever getting restored, while agility is the understanding of seeing what's coming at us, what are the scenarios things can play out, and what's the best path forward for the organization. Good risk management incorporates both risk agility and risk resilience to deliver value to the organization.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I think it's quite clear the difference between resilient and agility. So resilient basically refer how quick we can, basically back, to the normal shape when we got a certain risk event. And agility is how could we have a kind of preparation ability to what is going to come. So, and it has actually must be interlinked one to another for the organization in order to create value as well as protecting the value. Now we come to the second questions, Michael. Please share any research or your own observation about how GRC contributes to an organization's resilience in this case. Please, Michael.
That's an interesting question. The relationship of GRC to the organization's resilience, whether it's business or operational resilience, there's nuances there we can talk about. But in the end, I think we need to really understand what GRC is about. Too often, organizations put the cart before the horse. They start with the C, then move to the R, and maybe look at the G if they ever do. While GRC, done right, starts with objectives. In fact, let's look at the OCEG definition of GRC, Governance, Risk, and Compliance, that I helped contribute to in the OCEG GRC capability model as an OCEG fellow. GRC is a capability to reliably achieve objectives, address uncertainty, and act with integrity. Now, breaking that down, reliably achieving objectives, that's the G in GRC. We might have entity-level objectives, division, department, process, project, asset-level objectives. Then we start performing against those objectives. That's the governance. The next part of that definition was address uncertainty. ISO 31000, the international standard on risk management, defines risk as the effect of uncertainty on objectives. So there's a relationship there. And the last part of the definition is act with integrity. That's the compliance piece, so that we ensure that the controls are in place and are operational or meet our regulatory requirements in all that context of risk and governance as well. So looking at that definition, GRC is a capability to reliably achieve objectives, address uncertainty, and act with integrity. Now that contributes to resilience because we set our objectives for the organization, but also objectives for services and processes and products and operations. We have those objectives. Understanding those objectives, we then can understand the uncertainty to those objectives. And that enables us to enable risk agility and risk resilience that we talked about before. And then we act with integrity to make sure that we're staying within the boundaries there to be able to protect the organization and be able to recover from risk events when we do have resiliency issues and things that bubble to the surface. So to me, that's how GRC really contributes to resilience, is that it helps us frame and define what are the objectives for products, services, processes, what's the uncertainty there and where risks can play out and unfold, and how do we implement those controls and act with integrity from the compliance angle, so also that we can be a more resilient organization, but at the same time also being agile as well.
Thank you. So I think from your explanation, it's clear that basically GRC are very fundamentals needed to make it sure the organization is resilient, particularly in the future where we have to embrace the uncertainty around. Thank you, Michael. And then, I would like to come to the questions number 3. In order to make sure the organization have a resilient future, why should be the GRC integrated with the ESG? Or the other way around, ESG be integrated to the GRC?
So, why should GRC be integrated with ESG? I actually think it's the opposite way around. That ESG should be integrated with GRC. And sometimes they even talk about ESGRC, the G that links the two of them. But from my perspective, GRC is how ESG gets done. ESG ultimately is about that reporting to the variety of different frameworks and standards out there. The most recently, coming to fruition being something like the EU CSRS, the European Union's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, reporting standard, that is. And so we've got a variety of frameworks out there, GRI and so many more. IFSB, I can go on and on. But ESG is about that reporting in that aspect. For operationally, GRC is how we can deliver on those ESG reports. We have to start with understanding, again, back to the GRC definition, the objectives of ESG. Too often I see software and approaches out there that start with risk. Risk doesn't happen in a vacuum. Risk happens in a context. In fact, that's like with ISO 31000, which came from Australia, New Zealand 4360 standard. Risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. In order for there to be a risk, there's got to be a context, the objectives. And so organizations need to understand what are their ESG objectives. Recently I sat on a panel at a conference and Bosch was there, the large global German manufacturer, 400,000 employees. They had the objective to be carbon neutral, to be the first company of that size and scale that is carbon neutral. And they achieved that objective. That's was one of their E objectives. So under the E, the S, and the G, we have objectives. That's the governance function in GRC to establish our environmental objectives, our social objectives around inclusivity, diversity, our objectives around no tolerance for child labor, forced labor, things like that. And then, of course, the variety of objectives under the G itself around anti-bribery and corruption and fraud, internal controls of financial reporting, information security. We have objectives. Then we map those risks to those objectives. What are our ESG risks in the context of our ESG objectives? And then how do we go about complying with our values and ethical and ESG commitments and statements and the controls for ESG in the environment? So GRC is how ESG gets done and delivered in the organization.
Thanks, Michael. It's quite clear that basically ESG to be integrated with the GRC. Thanks. So then, following the question number 3, I have a question number 4, i.e., please sharing your research or observation about evidence or success story of integrated GRC and ESG. What particularly the key success factor in this context? Please, Michael.
The key success factor of integrated GRC and ESG. Well, I'm going to go back, don't want to be like a stuck record repeating myself, but it's clearly enabling the organization to achieve its ESG objectives. ESG done right is going to be determined by what are the objectives of the organization and our measurement of achieving those objectives. The objectives in the E, the S, and the G. all that is critically important. And this requires tone from the top, but and engagement from the board and executives, but also requires a cross-department initiative because this is very expansive in the organization. And it also goes into the extended enterprise. The modern organization is not measured by or defined by traditional brick and mortar walls and employees. The modern organization is an extended web of suppliers, vendors, outsourcers, service providers, contractors, consultants, and more. And their measurement of ESG is also done across those relationships. So we have to do ongoing continuous due diligence there. And so we need to clearly define our objectives, measure the uncertainty, act with compliance. To me, the key success factor gets down to an integrity score. ESG to me is all about the integrity of the organization. What we communicate in our code of conduct, our policies, our commitments, and our engagements and so forth, that is actually reality around the environment, social governance practices in the organization. Or, the opposite is smoke and mirrors, where we say one thing on ESG, but actually do another. To me, the ultimate success factor is that measurement of integrity. What we communicate to the world about ESG, is it a reality in the organization? I'm often asked, where do we start with ESG? Well, I say start with your policies. You're doing something for ESG already. You unpack your code of conduct, your HR policies, inclusivity, diversity, harassment, discrimination, your bribery and corruption policies, your environmental policies, your health and safety policies, your IT security policies, your privacy policies. All these tie into parts of ESG. So I always tell organizations to start looking at the integrity and how they're approaching ESG currently is to start looking at their policies and then start determining, are these policies a reality or are they a fiction in our organization? And then start building out your roadmap to get you from that point.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. So actually, audience, we have already gone through and complete the discussion between Michael Rasmussen and myself regarding about the GRC. In particular, i.e. building resilient future of organization through GRC and ESG. Resilient, agility, and GRC and ESG are basically the terminologies that we are going to come across not only just at the GRC Summit 2023 that will be held in August 2023, but also in our day-to-day life, whether in our organization or in our profession. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing you all together in the next upcoming GRC Summit. Good day, everyone.